4 years old, and all that stood between me and that chair was a pros and cons list. Pro, he will be able to play sports. Con, he could die. Pro, he will live a normal life. Con, there are only 7 in the U.S. Pro, it is still small, so it's not that harmful yet. Pro, if we do it now rather than later, he'll have a better chance. When I was born, it was like most experiences. Very happy, extremely exciting, very stressful, but overall a celebration. However, I caused a lot of problems as well. To begin with, I was born 27 days early on the morning of March 1st, 2001. When my mom and dad first looked at me, they were amazed as to how damn cute I was, but they couldn't take their eyes off of this thing on my lip. Well, that thing happened to be a hemangioma. A hemangioma is a benign tumor of blood vessels that often forms a red birthmark. Even though my hemangioma looked cute and innocent, it was not. Hemangiomas are very serious birth defects that, if left untreated, will continue to grow and grow. Because mine was on my lip, if it continued to grow and grow, it could pop, and I would most likely bleed out. Because of the dangers of popping my hemangioma, I didn't play sports for the first 4 years of my life. When I was 4 years old, my parents finally decided to get me the surgery. There were only 7 doctors in the United States, and luckily, one of them lived in Chicago. His name was Dr. Bauer, and he performed a flawless surgery except for taking a chunk out of my upper lip. But in all seriousness, he performed a flawless surgery, and the news only got better after it was done. He told me that for the next 2 months of my life, all I could eat was popsicles, ice cream, and Jell-O, which is every 4-year-old's dream. My mom and dad were very hesitant to do the surgery because if it failed, I could die. However, they knew that the surgery was fairly simple and I would be able to live a normal life afterward. After the surgery, unlike most parents, the first thing my dad said was, "He's going to play hockey." He didn't ask my mom if I was okay or how the surgery went. And when my mom looked at him in confusion, he responded, "How do you know he's going to play hockey?" He responded with, "Because when he sees me play, he's going to want to be just like me." Sure enough, he was right. It didn't take long to find me and Big Mike with a stick always in our hands. I fell in love with the game just as my father predicted. This game has led me to so many great experiences, and I am so lucky to be able to play it every day. Ever since my surgery, I have been so lucky to be able to play hockey, and I cherish every day that I step onto the ice. However, hockey at times has been frustrating. The one season my team made it to the championship in all 4 tournaments, and we got runner-up in all 4, losing in a shootout in 1 and overtime and all the rest. Just as frustrating has been being sidelined by injuries, including the 4 times I sprained my left shoulder and the 2 concussions to go along with it. There were many other disappointments along the way, but the thing that hurt the most was missing out on so much. When I was in 6th grade, I was chosen to be on the Bauer Select team. Only the most elite players were selected to this team, which is a very big deal. As exclusive as this was, there are guys from that team who do not continue on the competitive path today. At least 5 have quit hockey, and many merely play high school hockey in Illinois. No offense, Elkhorn. Only a few continue to play hockey at a high level today, including 2 on NTDP and 1 at Lawrence. When I got rostered to this select team, I was both nervous and excited. The day before the first tournament, we were having a meeting an hour away from my house. Of course, I would have to go, because what is more important than a squirt hockey tournament in April? So I dragged myself out to this all-important meeting, and when I finally stepped into the locker room, only half of the team was there. Coach Caulfield spoke to us for about 15 minutes, handed us our gear, and we were free to go. Shortly after, I was on the road en route back to my house with Big Mike and another hour on the road. Total waste of time. On this same night, it was my best friend's birthday party. All of my friends were going to see the Blue Man Group. together, which is a performance group in Chicago. So while I was at this all-important meeting, I was missing my best friend's birthday party, where I knew my friends were having a blast. The next Monday at school, as you can imagine, all my friends could talk about was the party. This was my first real experience with missing out on something. Then it started to happen more frequently as I got older. The year before I came to Brooks, I traveled to Canada 4 times, Detroit 3 times, Madison once, Notre Dame once, and Boston as well. As you can imagine, I missed a lot of school. On top of that, I had games every single weekend that year except for one. If you have ever been to the suburbs of Chicago, if you ever have been to the suburbs of Chicago, you will notice that a lot of the towns are mostly Jewish. Growing up, I assumed that was the norm. My 7th grade year, I was invited to over 100 bar mitzvahs and another 25 my 8th grade year. That is one every single Saturday night and some on Sundays during the day. With me being gone for the majority of the weekends throughout the year, I had to miss a lot of bar mitzvahs, including my 3 best friends. Often, I had to leave early because I always had hockey on Sunday mornings. As I assume a lot of you probably haven't been to a bar mitzvah, but it's basically just a giant dance filled with 7th graders moshing to Tsunami for about a half hour, and then everyone will just go on their phones and check college football. But one of the big things is called the snowball dance. The DJ will play a slow song while everyone makes a giant circle on the dance floor around the bar mitzvah guy or girl. He or she would then pick the person they want to dance with, and it would get pretty rowdy, as much as us 7th grade Jews could. So I was at one of my best friend's bat mitzvahs. They're identical twins named Michelle and Lauren Leonard, and we had been best friends since 5th grade. It was well known that Lauren was the better-looking twin and the funnier twin, even though they were basically the same person. When it came time for the snowball, of course Lauren would choose first because she was the better twin. With no doubt, I was the obvious choice for first pick. Standing at 4'7", weighing in at 80 pounds, with a sweet gelled-up hair look. Who else was she going to pick? So we got down to it and did our awkward dance where we stood a foot apart, my hands on her hips and hers on my shoulders. This took place at around 9:30. Then the second snowball, Michelle's, would take later that night at around 10:30. I had a game the next day, so I left at around 9:50 to be able to be in bed by 10 o'clock. Then Michelle's snowball came around, and surprise, I was not there. I woke up the next morning with over 100 texts and calls asking where everyone was, or at them asking where I was. At first, I thought I was a hit last night. Maybe all the girls saw me hit a whip pretty hard, followed by an unreal nene. As it turns out, Michelle also wanted to pick me first for snowball because, obviously. Because I wasn't there, she ran off crying and disappeared for the rest of the night. It's safe to say that she and all her friends were pretty mad at me. The next couple weeks, she wouldn't talk to me, and neither would her friends. After all, this was the biggest deal, because what is more important than one snowball out of the 150 that I had to go to? FOMO. We have all seen the corny commercials for fear of missing out. I'm sure that everyone in here has experienced this at one point during their high school careers. For a lot of people, missing out on one night doesn't bother them, and for others, missing out on one night could feel like the end of the world. I have been missing out on every Friday and Saturday night hangout since 7th grade, and I've grown accustomed to it. It didn't really bother me in the moment, but looking back, it really sucked. Constantly having to go home early, wondering what memories your friends are making while you're in bed preparing for your game the morning after. For a teen, it can feel like every time you miss out on something, it's the end of the world, but it's not. Thankfully, I have been fortunate enough to realize this. When I first came to Brooks last year as a new sophomore, it was more of the same for me. I got my schoolwork done, went to hockey, and immediately went back to the 3rd floor of Thorne. I didn't leave the dorm much for anything other than school, food, or hockey, which is exactly what I was trying to avoid. A big reason why I moved nearly 1,000 miles away from home, my friends, and my family was to be able to balance my hockey and my social life. So far, I was failing. I wasn't doing anything aside from those 3 things, and I probably wouldn't have realized this if a certain person didn't approach me on one day in winter. Out of respect for her privacy, I won't name her. However, she told me that she never saw me anywhere. She told me to get out of my dorm and stop just hanging out with the kids on the third floor. The guys on the third floor included me, my current roommate, Charlie Alcorn, Julian Chalette, who sadly left the school, Herbert, Fritz Wright, and the one and only Jack Bond. It wasn't until Jack Bond tragically left the school until I took these words to heart. I began to go out a little bit more and not spend every single bit of free time I had at the rink. Since I didn't realize this myself, I got lucky enough that somebody showed me that there was more to Brooks than just classes and hockey. She had opened my eyes to a valuable lesson. You need to live in the moment. When you are lying in bed before your next game and everyone else is out having a good time, don't worry about it. I cared too much about what my friends were doing on some random Friday night in 8th grade. I shouldn't have been stressing about the memories I was missing, but more about the memories that I was going to make. Although I've focused here on some negative things that hockey has brought me, overshadowing all of that are the memories that no one else could have gotten without being in my position. Overall, those memories are far greater than the ones I would have gained at a random high school hangout. I would have never been rafting through a river in Penticton over the summer of 7th grade. I would have never found myself lost in Vienna at midnight without a phone and only with a couple of teammates to find myself back to the hotel. I wouldn't have dropped $50 on gummy bears just to throw it all out of my 40th floor Salzburg hotel window onto walking pedestrians below. I would have never witnessed a kid get sent off a Segway at 20 miles an hour down the side of a mountain in Slovakia. He was okay, by the way. And lastly, I wouldn't be up here today. Thank you.